Yeah, guys, you haven't seen the Basin 100 ampere hour 12 volt ready-built battery here for a while. But let me tell you, I'm still using it. I actually take these batteries inside and have my computer running from them with the Renogy 3 kilowatt inverter, and it works just fine. Such a battery lasts me around 5 hours of running my computer when I edit videos. So all these videos you are seeing here are made with 100% renewable energy. Guys, welcome back to another video here from the Off-Grid Garage late night show. I'm showing you the Basin battery here, the ready-built battery, because as I said, I'm using these batteries inside the house and I'm charging and discharging them quite frequently now. So I'm using the 100 ampere hour Basin battery as well as the AOLithium battery, which is 12 volt 100 ampere hours as well. I charge them to 14 volts and then discharge them until they are at 10% around. And I was always curious, especially with the Basin battery here, because we know both of them have a good old Jabata JK-BMS inside with, well, passive balancing, right? This is a 120 amp BMS only in here, so a fairly small one, which has only around 70 to 80 milliamp of passive balancing. With a 100 ampere hour cell, you know, that is like this size here, 70, 80 milliamps. You can imagine what happens to the balancing here. Exactly, not much. Yeah, that is much better. So, screen recorder is running. You can see the BMS of this battery now. And it is fully charged. I had charged it last night to 14 volts. And you can see the pack looks actually fairly balanced with only a 13 millivolt deviation. Okay, I want to show you something here. If we, around 14 volts, it doesn't really matter too much. So we can see we've got 2.8 amps, so you can see it on the app anyway, 2.8 amps going into the battery. And let's leave this running for a moment.
20 minutes later.
Okay, to speed things up, I've increased the voltage now to 14.2 volts here on our power supply, so which is 3.55 per cell if they are all balanced. And you can already see that we have cell number 1, 2 and 4 rising faster than cell number 3. Yeah, and the deviation is getting larger and larger. We're at 27, 28 millivolt. And all these high voltage cells, they are actually balancing at the moment through the passive balancer of the BMS. So they're getting discharged with 70, 80 milliamps at the moment. But on the other hand, they are still getting charged with 1.6 amps. So balancing actually doesn't do anything here. And if we go into the function settings of the BMS here, we can see that there are two settings for balancing. I can enable and disable balancing altogether. Let's turn it back on. And I can also enable or disable charge balance, which is enabled at the moment. And what this does is basically it only balances the battery while it is charging. Yeah. And the threshold here to start balancing is at 3.4 volts. Then the internal balancer of the BMS kicks in and starts balancing any cell which is over 3.4 volts. So if I go here and turn off charge balance, you will see, look at this, there's no balancing happening anymore. So you can have only balancing while the battery is not charging or balancing while the battery is charging, right? And we have seen this many times during the tests of the batteries we have done here in the Off-Grid Garage, that this is a feature of the JK-BMS and other BMSs as well, the QECC. The DALI, for example, is a classic example for charge balance only. It only balances while charging, but once the battery has stopped charging, it doesn't balance anymore, which is totally nuts. So, and people have always told me, well, Andy, this charge balance is necessary. It is good. It is working. Just leave the balancer do its thing. It is all working fine. And I want to test this, of course, because I don't believe anyone. That is, of course, nonsense, as you know, because I'm always listening to you. And I found this quite interesting that some people have made these claims or these experience. And And charging such a high capacity battery with a passive balancer with only like 80-100 milliamps of passive balancing, and they say, well, it is working, the battery is actually in balance. And because I'm frequently charging and discharging these two batteries at the moment, I want to test this and see how this actually works. So what I will do is here, I will turn on the charge balance again of the pack, and it starts balancing again, of course, now because we are still charging. But you will see in a second if we are now 0.0 amps, and then see the charging stops altogether. As soon as the BMS doesn't measure any current anymore because it's so low, it stops balancing as well. And now the cells are sitting there on this higher voltage, and don't balance anymore. But you can see we are still charging with about 330 milliamps at the moment, but the BMS doesn't show anything anymore, which is fine. All the BMSs have a certain threshold, and if you go under that, they don't measure anything anymore. So, and now you can see we've got a deviation of 41 millivolt, which is not too bad actually. So it's not like it's a huge difference, right? So I wanna measure this over the next couple of days and see if this deviation actually goes down, because I'm always charging this battery to 14 volts and then discharge to around 10% and then charge again to 14 volts. And I'm using a DC to DC charger for that, and I charge with around 28 amps into these batteries. So it takes around little less than 5 hours to fully charge these batteries then again. And usually I have one of these batteries in my house to operate my computer, and the other battery is out here in the garage and is charging from solar. And I've taken a screenshot now of the BMS here with 41 millivolt deviation, and we disconnect the charger now, and now it's ready to go inside the house and to be used. As you can see, there's no balancing happening anymore, nothing, and it just sits there. And if people are right, this deviation should actually go down over time, because every time we charge, we're taking away this 70 to 80 milliamps of these batteries, which are higher inside this pack. And over time, they're getting charged a tiny bit less than the other one, than cell number 3, which is our lowest battery cell here. So over time, it should actually balance this pack, right? And I'm really keen to see, say over 20-30 times, if this is actually occurring. So if we see these tiny balance currents actually making a difference with these high capacity cells. And well, what you can see now is the deviation actually goes down already, because now, well, there's no charge current going through the battery anymore, and the voltage is now settling down to around 3.4 volts, and all the cell voltages are coming together now, going back into the flat area of the curve, and hence the deviation is declining. I want to do the same with the AOLithium battery, because at the moment both are in the garage here and getting charged. 14.2 volts. The BMS has exactly the same settings. So balancing turns on at 3.4 volts, and we have also charge balance enabled. If I turn off charge balance and we go back, we can see balance is stopping right now. So we leave charge balance enabled as per default and see if people are right, and the deviation actually goes down over time. I'm really keen to see that. And how long does it take? How much progress do we actually do every time we charge the battery? Can we see a tiny bit of progress? I don't know. Does it really work? I have no idea. And usually these ready-built batteries, you cannot open them without breaking into the case to install an active balancer or to balance the cells manually to do a full top balancing. So you are totally reliant on these internal passive balancers of the BMS now. And we can have a look how the batteries go after 5 times charging and discharging. So welcome to the long-term test. So quickly here, I have now recharged the AOLithium battery to 14.2 volts as well. And we can see a deviation here of 42 millivolts, so very similar to the Basin battery I'll take a screenshot here to start with. Well, we are not charging anymore and balancing has turned off, so that'll be it. That'll be our start point. Let's see if we actually get a result here. What do you think? Does it work or does it not? Well, I guess we will find out.
3 weeks later.
And today we wanna have a look at these both batteries again here. A little bit of an intermediate result, I would say. So we have started this experiment with these two batteries here around 20 days, 3 weeks ago. While one of the batteries charged here in my garage from the solar panels in my driveway, the other one was connected to an inverter in my house to supply power to my computer to edit these videos. And I changed them over every day, so they have been constantly charged and discharged for the last 3 weeks. The discharge current is around 15 to 25 amps, while charging was with constant current of 28 amps. I have 14.2 volts. We connect the power supply to the battery. Yeah, and we can already see there's no power going into this battery. It is 100% charged. And we started 3 weeks ago with this battery here with a 23 millivolt deviation, and we now have a deviation of 136 millivolt at the same state of charge. So well, what can I say, right? Let's have a look at the basin battery, the power supply here. This one was charged last night. Interestingly, you can see here the charging function is actually turned off. When I try to turn it on, it won't let me, because battery state all the way to the right. Protection information, we can see we have a cell overvoltage times 3. So this has occurred 3 times in the last 3 weeks that we have a cell overvoltage protection and the BMS turned off charging altogether. And we started this battery here with 42 millivolt deviation 3 weeks ago. And we now have a deviation of still 63 millivolt here. So even in the basin battery, the deviation has increased slightly. And both batteries have a similar JK-BMS inside. And these JK-BMSs, they have a balance current of about 70 to 80 milliamps only. Yeah, this is 0.07 amps, right? For a 100 ampere hour battery. And here in the function settings, we can see charge balance is turned on. And as I have shown you in the first part of this video here, it balances only while we measure a current going into this battery. And I always said this does not work, but some of you said it does work over time. So the basin battery has done 18 cycles so far. We started with 5. Battery state, and the AOLithium has done 16 cycles, and we started with 5 cycles as well 3 weeks ago. So we've done 11 cycles and 13 cycles here on these batteries. And the deviation, the voltage difference, the voltage delta has increased in both batteries with this charge balance function enabled. And now I want to continue this test for another 3 weeks or so. So keep using these batteries in the same way. But I want to turn off charge balance in this battery, and we leave charge balance on in this battery here. We've got now the intermediate result after 3 weeks, and we want to see if this actually improves the situation in this battery while this one gets worse. So we go into function settings and turn off charge balance for the AOLithium battery. And if we go back, we should actually see the balancer kicking in right away because there's no charge coming in. And the balancer is actually working now, so it's balancing this battery right away. When I charge these batteries here with 28 amps constant current until 14.2 volts, and then I allow a 2-hour absorption time. This is just how the charger is set up at the moment. And in this absorption time now, the balancer has actually time to work on this battery here on these cells to balance them out. And I want to see if these 70-80 milliamps is actually enough to keep this battery here in balance. So let's see what will happen. I guess I see you in 30, 20, 21 days again for the final result. And then then hopefully we can see a difference with charge balance turned on and charge balance turned off. All right. You have a wonderful 3 weeks. See you then. I'm back. It feels like it was yesterday when I did the test with these two batteries and we changed the setting on the AOLithium battery to we have turned off charge balance, right? What can I say? It was actually yesterday, and it is only I have done only one full charge on this battery, and I want to show you the result after one full charge with charge balance turned off. So here we have the screen recording of both BMSs. On the left hand side we've got the Basin 12 volt 100 ampere hour, and on the right hand side we've got the AOLithium 12 volt 100 ampere hours. So you can see both batteries are fully charged. There's a tiny bit missing in the Basin battery, but I'm just going to parallel these two batteries now and see what the current actually is. There's not much. See, now the AOLithium battery is charging the Basin battery. And I also want to connect the charger. So here I've also got the charger connected. We are charging with 14.25 volts, constant voltage, and 5 amps maximum this one can do. So let's wait for a moment and observe the cell voltages. So we've got 1 millivolt, 2 millivolt deviation in the Basin and 3 millivolt in the AOLithium at the moment. That is great. At 100% state of charge. But we are only at 13.4 volts. So we still need to wait. Okay, I'm now connecting the big charger here as well. It takes too long with this small one. So we now can see 12 amps in the AOLithium and 11 amps going into the Basin battery. And as always, when you parallel batteries, they should balance each other out. So they have the same voltage, of course. So and here we can see the AOLithium is already charged a bit more, so it takes less power than the Basin battery, 4 amps to 14 amps. It's a good demonstration. What happens if you parallel batteries with different state of charge. And both BMSs are programmed to start balancing at 3.4 volts. But only in the Basin the charge balance is turned on, so we can see already the balancing happening. Cell number 1, 2 and 3, and number 4 is the lowest cell, so it doesn't get balanced at all. And there's no balancing happening in the AOLithium battery at the moment. Even we are at 3.4 volt as well, but charge balance is turned off. So it will only balance if there's no charge measured by the BMS anymore. And you can see the deviation rising in the Basin battery now to 20 millivolts. So we should see the red and gray cell, there it is. And we have only 7 millivolt, 8 millivolt, 9, 10 in the AOLithium. We've got 3.5 volts, almost. We had 1 millivolt deviation in the AOLithium. So 51 millivolt deviation in the Basin and only 6 millivolt in the AOLithium because I did a full charge and discharge on the AOLithium last night after I changed the settings, and with this full charge again just tonight it actually balanced to under 5 millivolt already with the first charge cycle and charge balance turned off. And I want to show you what actually happens. So we are still charging with both BMSs. You can see both BMSs showing actually a current going in the battery, but the AOLithium is at 0.6, so it should actually turn off. I'm not sure what the threshold is, probably 0.4 amps or so. And once it doesn't show any current going into the battery anymore, the balancing will kick in this BMS. While in the Basin, when the current goes to 0, balancing will just stop. And then the battery sits on this high voltage and doesn't do anything anymore. And the AOLithium will balance all the time, as soon as we stop charging. And even both BMSs have only 70 to 80 milliamp of passive balancing. The balancing actually works in the AOLithium. As you can see now, once the current goes to 0, the balancer will kick in and it will balance now. See, now both batteries are balancing, but as you can see, the deviation is still increasing in the basin battery. We are at 58 millivolt. Yeah, so we are at 60 millivolt deviation in the basin. It's increasing slightly, 61 millivolt now. And we are at 6 millivolt in the AOLithium. And now any second we will see the balancing will stop in the basin battery, because the current goes to 0 and then balancing will stop. And then the deviation will not change. 62 millivolt we are seeing now. It's slightly increasing. See now balancing has stopped because there's no current anymore and the cells will not balance anymore. You can see 3 millivolt in the AOLithium. 3 millivolt, I mean. That was after one full charge with this battery and charge balance turned off. And we had before, we had like 150, 151 millivolt deviation. And even this 70, 80 milliamp balancing was enough for an hour, 1.5 hours to balance this pack if you turn off charge balance. And the basin battery sits at 66 millivolt deviation, 67, and it's not balancing anymore. Look at this difference. After one full charge, the AOLithium battery is perfectly balanced, while the basin battery with charge balance turned on is still doing nothing. 67 millivolt, 68 millivolt. And I promise you, if I take off the charger now, the battery will sit there until tomorrow and probably goes down to 3.5, but the deviation will not change much in the basin battery. While if we do the same with the AOLithium, it keeps balancing until we hit 1 millivolt deviation, or all the cells are under 3.4 volts again. It will just continue balancing the battery until it's done. And this is what the balancer should do. Oh, do we see 70 millivolt in the basin? Because even both BMSs show 0 amps, right? We are still charging with around 500 milliamps into these two batteries. But the BMS does not register this anymore. So it shows 0, but in reality we are still charging, and that's why the deviation goes up in the basin battery. And you can see cell number 1 there is almost at 3.6 volts, while cell number 4 is just over 3.5. There we have 70 millivolt. And I think if I leave this now for an hour, we will actually have a high voltage disconnect in the basin battery, because cell number 1 will hit 3.65 volts. And if we have a look in the battery state and go all the way here, yeah, you can see the cell over voltage times 3. So it has occurred 3 times that cell number 1 has disconnected or triggered the over voltage disconnect in this battery. Yeah, it is very, very clear that turning off charge balance is actually what you should do with these batteries. And this is exactly something I could never believe when people told me they have a DALI BMS with like 40, 50, 20 milliamps of balancing current, and they have these high capacity batteries here and saying the balancer is working fine, it balances your pack, you just need to keep charging, cycle them, and over time it will actually balance. And I could never understand how this actually works. And from this test here, after 10, 12 cycles, now 13 cycles, the deviation in both batteries has gone worse, and only disabling charge balance does actually the trick and balances your battery, while leaving charge balance turned on, yeah, function settings. Function settings. Yeah, well, leaving charge balance turned on is not good. And here it is off. This is the only thing you need to do. And you also need to give your BMS a bit of time to actually balance your battery at, say, 14.2 volts, which is 3.55. Okay, so what I want to do now is we are at 69, 70, 71 millivolt deviation in the basin. And we go into the function settings and turn off charge balance. And you can see the BMS is starting balancing right away. And now the AOLithium battery was at 1 millivolt just now. Okay, I would say let's leave both batteries connected as they are for, say, half an hour. And then we have a look what the deviation does in the basin battery and in the AOLithium battery with now charge balance turned off in both batteries. I've got the feeling I'm repeating myself all the time, but you have to turn off charge balance in these batteries. Otherwise, it will not work. Charge balance does not work with these BMSs and these batteries. Not at all. Okay, I would say let's see us again in half an hour and see what the deviation does in the basin battery. Okay, we have now roughly half an hour later than just now. And the deviation has come down to 58 millivolts now in the basin battery. So we made a bit of progress here, not too much, but I think maybe the balancer is a bit stronger in the AOLithium battery than it is in here. Eventually it will balance out to under 5 millivolt, I'm sure, if we just give it some time. But this 3-week test, this 3-week and 1-day test was actually to prove that charge balance should be turned off in these BMSs. I mean, ideally the BMS would balance regardless if we charge, discharge, or not charging at all, or anything else in between, like the QUCC or like the JK-BMS. I think the Overkill does it as well, the Heltec, can't remember. So as soon as we pass the start voltage of the balancer, it should turn on, and it should stay on as long as we are above this start voltage and the voltage precision. Is it called? Yeah, they call it the balancing precision voltage. As long as these both criteria are true, the balancer should just work, regardless if we charge or not charge. Okay guys, so far this video from tonight. As always, thank you very much for watching. Thanks for all your amazing support. It helps me a lot in making these videos. Thank you very, very much. And until the next video, when we do some other interesting stuff here in the Off-Grid Garage, you stay charged, stay safe, and thanks again for watching. See you then. Bye bye.